So again, welcome. My name is Sarah Hawkins, and this is my partner Dianna Klasanen, and we are so grateful that you have taken the time today to join us for Game Changing Celebrations, our webinar talking about what creative memorial planners can do for you. This is such a topic that we're passionate about, and we hope that by the end of our time here today, you will have a couple of nuggets that maybe you've never thought about, things that you want to think about for your own celebrations of life, or those for which you'll plan in the future. Like I said, there is a chat button, so we hope that this is a place where you are welcome to ask any of your questions that come up as we go through our presentation. And at the end of the presentation, we will make sure to address any questions that do come up, or if there are, of course, things that you'd like to just speak with us privately about, our emails and phone number and everything like that will be at the end of our time here. So Dianna, why don't you start with just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my background is in events and fundraising, and I worked in the nonprofit and cultural sector for 20 years, working on TIFF, the Canadian Screen Awards, and I was looking for a new challenge for the next chapter in my career. I'm pretty passionate about, supporting people and causes. And I came across an article in Fortune magazine about the top 10 jobs of the future. And one of them was a funeral director. And I was like, wow, I could do that. So I decided to go back to school and I got my license and I was practicing as a funeral director for 4 years. And it really gave me, some grounding and insight into the death care industry. But I always had a vision of becoming a creative memorial planner. Even in my own personal life, I saw a gap in how people celebrate their loved ones. And I came up with the term creative memorial planner and pitched it to my employer. And after cultivating the idea and receiving my Celebrant certification, it's now become a reality, which is super exciting for me. While I was doing my Celebrant certification, I reached out to Sara, and she became my mentor. And I'm so proud that we are now working together on Redbird events. And, I'm going to give Sara some props here. So she's going to give her, a little bit of background on herself too.
Thank you, Dianna. Well, the feeling is so mutual. I'm so grateful that you came up with this idea and pitched it to Jimmy. But just before we get to, sorry, Jimmy Cardinal, who is, we'll get to that in a little bit. But just to give you a bit of my background, I worked as a teacher for several years. I also worked in the nonprofit realm and doing events. Had a couple of kids and was really grateful to be able to have the time to spend staying at home with them for a few years. And then I found myself wondering what the next chapter might be for me in terms of my career. And my girlfriend said to me, well, Sarah, while you're figuring out what you want to be when you grow up, why don't you come work with me at the funeral home? I was really intrigued by this idea, and I'd never thought about the funeral profession before, but it was there that I got introduced to the role of a funeral celebrant. I went and did my research, got trained with Insight Institute, which I am now, as Dianna mentioned, training celebrants as well for the Canadian trainings that happen up here, and so privileged to do that with Insight. And then, of course, COVID-19 pandemic hit and really forced me again to pivot and try to figure out what is it that I'm going to do. For 7 years, I partnered with funeral homes across the Greater Toronto Area and the Halton region, doing my own business as a celebrant, which I'll explain more about what that is later. And then I approached Jimmy Cardinal. He told me about this vision that Dianna had, that she just explained about creative memorial planning. And, the light bulbs just went off for all three of us, thinking this is something that we could do to help fill in a gap for so many people. And so that's a little bit about me. And let's talk now a little bit about Redbird.
Yeah, Redbird. Wow. First off, Redbird is not a funeral home. However, The Cardinal family has invested in us. They own their own funeral home. We are an event bereavement company, and they've been in business for over 100 years, so they know what they're doing. Redbird is the home of modern personalized celebrations that can happen almost anywhere. Redbird was created to give people what they need, a personalized, meaningful event that's full of life. You know, the funerals can be formulaic, and nowadays many families reluctantly follow tradition, or worst of all, do nothing. And as a funeral director, I presided over many funerals. I saw traditional cookie cutter funerals, as well as an increase in cremations with no services at all. And while traditional funerals serve some families, they don't speak to everyone. And we personalize everything in our life. So why wouldn't we do this? And Redbird is here to fill that gap. But funerals still matter. Maybe now more than ever, we're in this time of restrictions and lockdowns, but we still have a human need to grieve, to celebrate, to say our piece, and comfort each other. These things bring real meaning to life, and they're essential for closure. Redbird helps families and friends create this new, better funeral that's both modern and meaningful. So we don't really care what you call your event, be it a funeral, a memorial, a celebration of life, a gathering. We are just passionate about something that both acknowledges the impact of your loved one's life or helps everyone left behind say goodbye in a meaningful way.
That's right. That's something that I came across time and time again with my business as well. As people would find out what I did as a celebrant, and then they would say, "Oh, I'm not going to have a funeral," because they associate that with something that's somber and heavy and just an overall negative experience. And so, like Dianna said, you can call it whatever we want, whatever you want, but we really think it's important to have something, that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what is a creative memorial planner? Well, Redbird combines event planners with certified life celebrants. You know, it's a two-sided approach. It creates events that guests love, but also creates space for important emotions. It's really the best of both. And we see our job as twofold. We have event experts and celebrants. If you've ever organized an event like a wedding, anniversary, or even a conference, you know there are so many details that go into it. You know, from the guest list, from the RSVP, music, photography, speakers, as well as finding a venue, selecting food. It should all best represent and express your culture, your values, and your budget. Some of our clients are even event planners because they recognize the amount of work that goes into creating something like this and to hosting a funeral. And they want the space. You want to be the grieving wife, the husband, the friend. We work with families to create this personalized event, whether it's thematic or an elegant gathering. No detail is left out. We all know the importance of gathering. We all know this. And we are missing out on so much right now that getting together with your loved ones during the pandemic, it can throw your energy off and your emotions while you're grieving. We lead solo lives so much that we need some sort of gathering to bring people together to express their grief. I remember a family of a young man who was a superstar soccer player, and where we incorporated his love of soccer and sport and his sense of style and fashion. And we hosted it at a sports club where his trophies were displayed and his teammates wore his jerseys and everyone was dressed to the nines. And the one detail that the family kept talking about were the oranges on the sidelines, where the young man would always come out and, eat his orange, but they didn't know they could have it in their celebration of life. And so Sara and I cut up some oranges, and it just made the event. It really showcased that when you're in the midst of grief and you're feeling these emotions, that sometimes some things are overlooked. There's really, the sky is the limit when you come to celebrations of life. We have so much inspiration, whether it's a single or a simple gathering with some great food, or celebrating a high tea, with your favorite aunt's teapot and the small sandwiches, or maybe someone loved a pub night and had the trivia was all about the deceased. Really brings something to the celebration. We meet with families with an open mind and discuss their needs. The goal of Redbird really is to inspire people about funerals, memorials, or celebrations differently. However, the event does need some grounding. It's not just another party. There has to be some dignity and some structure to the event. And this is where, our second hat comes into play, where we are the celebrants and we provide that structure and that grounding to really, separate it from a wedding or a conference. And Sarah's going to talk a little bit about our celebrant services.
That's right. Thank you, Diana. You did such a great job just outlining that event planner hat that we do wear. That is obviously a huge piece of what we do. But then there is that ceremony piece. As certified celebrants, we're also going to help the family to create a meaningful, personalized service that gives everybody what they need, the space to celebrate, to grieve, to heal, to laugh, cry, like I said, all of the emotions, and to create new and lasting memories. So, what exactly is a celebrant? A celebrant is a trained and certified professional who creates customized funerals or celebration of life services. And these ceremonies really reflect the true personality and the lifestyle of the deceased. Your celebrant works closely with you to plan and officiate a service that perfectly honors your loved one and is also deeply meaningful to friends and family. You will hear us say over and over again, as celebrants, we are passionate about not having a cookie cutter funeral, something that's really reflective of that person and that meets the family's needs. So, in order to do that, we wear a number of different hats or roles. Of course, our first hat is the consultant. We see the vision meeting as such a critical piece, a key piece of how we're going to gather all of the different information that we need. What is it that your vision is for the ceremony? What are the different elements that you may want to consider including, those that you've thought about and things that you haven't even thought about? We always say we're going to offer options for you, and each of us of our clients will have different ideas of, the speakers that may want to share stories, the music, be that live music or recorded playlists, the slideshow. Some families want to see those photos as part of the ceremony. Different candlelighting ceremonies or other types of unique ceremonies, poetry, readings, all of this will put together to see in what way is it going to flow. We'll present an order of service that will say, how can we structure this so that it flows well together? Then the second role that we will wear regularly, of course, is the MC role. And this is the hat that really helps to bring some cohesiveness to the ceremony. And we'll have, the welcome and opening remarks that sort of just sets the tone. We'll have the closing reflections at the end of the ceremony that will really, again, be reflective of that person and speak to the legacy that they're leaving. And then the introductions of the different elements that we've talked about along the way. All of those will be personalized and it will really give, again, that sense of cohesiveness. I remember when a friend of mine died and they did want to have something at a pub. They did not want an officiant or of any kind. There was no celebrant or minister or anything, but they did want speeches. And so up everybody came. They had about 5 or 6 planned speeches, and of course they opened the mic, which is something we have strong feelings about. But anyways, it was just lovely. The stories told about my friend were great, but it really lacked a sense of structure. There was no real strong beginning, middle, and end, and that's what the MC does. That really helps to tie everything together with a theme and provide some cohesiveness for the ceremony. The next hat we will wear is often the role of the storytellers. You know, there are many families who will say to us that we want to do all of the storytelling and we are just looking for you to wear that MC hat as the celebrant. But then there's families who say none of us can get up there and speak, or maybe there's just one or two, people that are speaking short, little, brief ideas or reflections about their loved one. Or sometimes it's a combination, where they're looking for the celebrant to wear some of the storytelling in terms of the bio and the history and this sort of they were born here and went to school there. But then the loved ones, want to speak personally about their personal reflections. And there are 1,000 different ways that we can structure a ceremony. But celebrants, one of our favorite pieces of feedback that we get is, it was like you knew them. And the concern, of course, beforehand is, well, how can you speak about this person? You never even really knew them. But I think that people are often pleasantly surprised at how much we can gather at that vision meeting, because we're talking about the nuts and bolts of the service at that vision meeting, but we're spending the bulk of our time there really getting to know the person so that we can help make that ceremony as personalized as possible. We're not just going to get the facts. We're going to get that sense of their personality, their quirks, their hobbies, their passions. What made them come alive? What were the challenges that they went through? We know life is not always peaches and roses for any of us. And so what are those difficulties that we can speak to, and how did they meet those challenges? What again, whether they want us to speak personally or not about that person, the essence of the person, the guest of honor, if you will be infused in the entire ceremony. And then lastly, there are still times where we will wear the hat of the clergy if it's needed. Some people hear about celebrants and they'll say, oh, so you must be the sort of officiant for atheists or agnostics. You must be the secular version. And I always say, well, no, we are the what do you need version of an officiant. There are families who will still want to incorporate spiritual or religious elements, in my experience, based on one of two things. Either it's really reflective of that person and who they were, and maybe they didn't go to church or they didn't have connection with a specific clergy, but that person was their faith or their spirituality is really important to them. Or sometimes it's not dad was an atheist, but mom or grandma would like to have some kind of spiritual reading or a prayer or scripture, that kind of thing, incorporating, because that's what's going to bring comfort to them. And they like the familiarity of those pieces.
Yeah.
We aren't here to push any agenda. We're just here to say what it is that you need. And, my background as a pastor's daughter myself provides that sense for sure of a comfort level for me to be able to incorporate those pieces. It's kind of in my blood, if you will. So that's the last sometimes hat that we will wear as a celebrant.
Yeah, and those are really important to recognize. When people try and do this by themselves, they may not understand all those steps and all those different elements that an officiant and a celebrant does bring to the table. And one of the things, this is such an important slide for us, because time and time again we hear our families say, oh, don't make a fuss. Don't make a fuss. I don't want anything done. Just have my cremation or burial. And Sara and I would strongly argue with that. We think you should make a fuss. We are passionate about our work because we have seen the power of what we do. We have families that come up to us and say they didn't know this is what a funeral could be like, that could have laughter and tears and joy, and that they feel lighter after a celebration. And we do provide real tangible support. As creative memorial planners, we are that support link to the family. When they don't have the energy to put that slideshow together or to write that eulogy, we step up and provide that to them.
That's right. Another reason that we believe that you should make a fuss is that chance to mourn. You know, we talk a lot about the difference between grief and mourning in our profession, grieving being the universal experience of all the different emotions that people will go through internally when they experience loss. Mourning, on the other hand, is the outward expression of that. It's bringing what's in out. And of course, there are lots of different ways to mourn. Sometimes it is just getting what's in out on paper through journaling, or getting what's in out through, you know, the physical tears, or talking to a friend about what it is that you're going through. And we see the celebration of life, the funeral, the memorial, as such a critical part of being able to mourn together your grief journey as a collective community of friends and family that have gathered together. And so then that does provide that sense of closure, that sense of acceptance. I think regularly about the gentleman who I helped do his wife's ceremony. And, you know, there was such a heaviness and a weight of grief in the vision meeting that we had with the family as she died of cancer too young. And then the sense of lightness, the sense of peace that he had, and saying to me after the ceremony, you know, I just feel lighter. I feel like there's been a huge burden lifted. Is that weird? And I said, no, sir, it's not weird. You've had a chance to say goodbye to your wife in a really personalized and meaningful way. And so, of course, that's going to bring that sense of closure, that sense of acceptance. And so that's why we believe we should make a fuss. So he is just one of many people that we've had. We're so grateful to have had the testimonies of people who have shared their kind words. Here you'll see George said, "You really captured my mother and made the service so personal for all of us. My mother would have loved it." We love hearing that, don't we, Dianna? That
We
my
sure
mom or
do.
my
Yeah.
dad would have loved it. And it's like, that's why we do this. He said, "I can't tell you how happy we are on how everything turned out. It was perfect." Suzanne wrote, "As our celebrant, you held a sweet and tender space for us, and you were eloquent and heartfelt. Gratitude for really joining us and our community in an important and meaningful ceremony." Here it is again. Here's the key phrase: "that will all help us move through grief with
Yeah.
greater acceptance, peace, and love." This is why we do what we do. Just one more I'll share. Kirsten was somebody who was devastated to lose her father. She knew she wanted something that was going to be really intimate with just the immediate and some immediate family and some close friends together in a circle. We shared stories and memories. I brought chocolate covered almonds because that was something that was really personal to her. Dad always loved chocolate covered almonds. You know, the grandkids knew that when they got in the car, they were going to get chocolate covered almonds from grandpa. And so they all enjoyed eating those while I shared the stories and memories in the life tribute that I wrote for dad. And at the end, was grateful to receive this email where she said, "You took the time to really listen to all of our thoughts on dad, and your preparation and thoughtfulness really showed. We could not have asked for a more meaningful, joyous service." How many people think the word joyous as an adjective that can describe funerals? Not many of us do. And yet we know from our experience, Dianna and I, that this is absolutely possible, and that this is not just possible, that it can be really, really, truly meaningful and healing for families.
Why choose a creative memorial planner? Well, we, you know, just from our testimonials alone, you should
Right.
choose a creative memorial planner. But we also are, you know, supportive guides in that, you know, we can bring your celebration of life that can happen anywhere. It's an overwhelming time when you have a death, and it's full of difficult emotions. There's so many decisions to be made and things to do, and there may not be much mental capacity. There are so many emotions running through a person. We're here to not only guide you, but you know, to take those processes on and to help with those decisions and to take on all of those details. We're also creative experts that work with any traditions or no traditions. You may have some ideas or come with a blank slate. But we can take those ideas and really create, you know, those wow moments and those experiences that are memorable with our experience and expertise, we bring a wide variety of creative elements to the gatherings, and they're always tailored. We don't no two ceremonies are alike, no two celebrations are alike. They're never cookie cutter.
That's right. We are those creative experts. I think about the fact that, everybody has different needs. Sometimes people like the idea of some of those traditional ceremonies. We talked about candle lightings that really are meaningful for some people. Others, we make up traditions and we make up ceremonies. I think about regularly the woman who they told me mom was a huge Pepsi addict. She just loved Pepsi. And so I thought, well, why don't we do a Pepsi toast ceremony at the beginning of the ceremony? And the family loved that idea. So this is kind of the creativity that we bring to the table, that as we get to know your loved one, we can come up with ideas that maybe you've never seen a Pepsi toast at a celebration of life before. But why not, if that's going to be something that really reminds you of mom and is something that's really meaningful for you as a family to be able to say goodbye. And then I choose a creative memorial planner because we are the end of life specialists. So this is why it's important. We know why it's so important to celebrate a loved one's life. And we know that there are many fantastic event planners out there doing great work. But there is something totally unique about planning an end of life event versus, say, a wedding or a birthday party or some kind of a corporate event. Both Dianna and I bring a combined 12 plus years of experience within the funeral profession that really has helped us, served us to be able to understand the different nuances that really are important. That this is so sacred in this type of unique event, unlike some of the other types of events that event planners may do. We understand there's such a need to create a space for the wide variety of emotions that will no doubt be present. Yes, there is the joy and the celebration and the gratitude that this person was here. There is, of course, also the sadness and the grief that they're no longer here with us. And we can understand the nuances of and understand how it's important to create space for all of these different emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, this brings us to the end of the formal portion of our time here together today. We're so grateful that you came to join us. We're wondering if there's anybody. I'm just going to check the chat here to see if there's any questions that have come up. Feel free to jump on. We hope that this has been helpful for you, that there's a nugget or two that you're walking away with when you think about, maybe you want to jot in your notes to your kids or your grandkids to say, this is what I want. Or as you think about planning your own loved ones,
Yeah, and
celebrations of life.
on behalf of Sara and I, we're thrilled to, talk about this. And if you have, any private questions, please email us. We are also on social media. And if there's any other topics that you're looking to explore or want some more information on, please suggest them to us. We are open to, as we say, we come as an open book, and we listen to the needs of our families.
That's right. We would love to hear from you. Reach out anytime. Thanks for being with us, and we wish you a wonderful Thursday.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye bye.